Welcome back, focused learners. Let's just jump right into it. Today's explainer is on a completely mesmerizing novel, Chigozie Obioma's The Fisherman. Now, on the surface, you're looking at this really gripping story about family and fate, right? But underneath all that, it is this profound look at how language literally shapes reality. Let's get into it. I mean, think about this. What if just a handful of spoken words had the power to not only tear a family apart, but also completely parallel the collapse of an entire nation? That's the core mystery we're unraveling today. We're going to take a journey from what feels like this very intimate, almost true crime-style family tragedy straight into this massive, sweeping national allegory for 1990s Nigeria. And the engine driving all this chaos? Just the spoken word. Okay, so it all starts with a fracture in the household. It's January 1996. The strict patriarch of the Agwu family moves away from their hometown to Yola for a job at the central bank. Left suddenly without that supervision, his four oldest sons, Ikenna, Boja, Obembe, and Benjamin, decide to take full advantage. They start sneaking off to fish at the Omiala River, but this isn't just your average fishing hole. Locals consider it this forbidden, superstitious place full of dark rumors. And sure enough, days later at that very river, the boys run into a local guy known for his disturbing visions, Abulu, the madman. And this is exactly where the match is struck. Abulu zeroes in on the eldest brother, Ikenna, and delivers his absolutely chilling prophecy. Ikenna, you shall die by the hands of a fisherman. Now, pause for a second. The brothers have literally just started calling themselves fishermen, so the implication here is terrifyingly clear. Abulu is straight up predicting that one of Ikenna's own brothers is going to murder him. It plants this ultimate toxic seed directly into Ikenna's mind. But to really get why this completely destroys the family, we kind of have to look at the mechanics of language itself. For that, we turn to some pretty fascinating literary theory. Scholars looking at Obioma's work point out that Abulu's prophecy isn't just a basic prediction. It's actually what philosophers call performative language, or a speech act. Essentially, these are words that do what they say. They don't just describe the world, they actively act upon it and make things happen. To break that down a bit, normally we use what's called constative statements. You know, facts that can be proven true or false, like the river is wet. Simple. But performative statements are a whole different beast. They actually create reality. But here's the catch. They need a crucial ingredient to work. The listener has to believe them. When Abulu shouted that prophecy, it couldn't be proven true or false in that moment. It absolutely needed Ikenna to internalize it, to believe it, for those words to literally act upon the world. This idea perfectly illustrates the concept of the deadly secret, which gets explored over in the academic journal Theory Now. And what makes this particular prophecy such a deadly secret is how incredibly ambiguous it was. Right as Abulu is shouting his vision, this airplane flies overhead, completely drowning out the exact words with its engine noise. Obembe, one of the younger brothers, is the only one who claims he actually heard the specific phrase by the hands of a fisherman. So this means the prophecy is basically unverified testimony. It's this raw performative act just hovering in thin air. It only gains its devastating power because Ikenna blindly places his confidence in it. He essentially becomes the author of his own doom. But, we gotta ask, why were these kids so incredibly vulnerable to misinterpreting language in the first place? Well, just look at the linguistic minefield they grew up in. The Agwu household is this really complex web of shifting meanings balancing three different languages. You've got formal English, which the father uses to establish authority and create distance. Then the mother speaks Igbo, but she relies heavily on proverbs and parables, meaning her words literally always have a hidden secondary meaning. And the kids, they speak Yoruba when they're just playing outside. So these boys are constantly navigating an environment that requires deep, complex interpretation. Obioma actually captures this weaponized linguistic environment perfectly. He writes, English had the potency of digging craters between you and your friends or relatives. In this house, language wasn't just a way to chat, right? It was this active, forceful tool used to pull the rug right out from under people. When the parents suddenly switched to English, it was a deliberate move to create a crater, a divide. Which leads us with this super critical question. What happens when parables are taken literally? The mother is constantly speaking in these Igbo parables, like she'll tell a story about carrying water in a jar when she's actually talking about carrying a child in her womb. But the kids, being young and naive, usually just take these figurative lessons at absolute face value. And that gap between the parents' layered figurative lessons and the children's hyper-literal interpretations sets a really dangerous precedent. And it's exactly that gap that leads to what we can call a fatal literalization. Ikena's tragic flaw was his total inability to be an ironic reader of the world around him. When Agwu says he's going to be killed by a fisherman, his brothers desperately try to talk some sense into him. They're like, Ikena, come on, we aren't real fishermen, we're literally just kids messing around at the river. They try to explain that the language is figurative, but Ikena literalizes the madness. He takes this performative statement as an absolute, undeniable fact. He genuinely starts believing his younger brothers are literal threats to his life. And that belief fundamentally breaks him. As the narrator says, hatred is a leech, the thing that sticks to a person's skin, that feeds off of them and drains the sap out of one's spirit. We watch this devastating emotional toll just rip the family apart as Ikena spirals into complete paranoia. He gets hostile, aggressive, totally alienated from the brothers he used to protect. And this self-fulfilling prophecy, it inevitably explodes in this horrific, fatal confrontation with his brother Boja, fracturing the family forever. Now, get ready for the massive aha moment here, because we need to zoom out from the micro straight to the macro. Obioma wasn't just writing a thriller about a superstitious family. No, this entire story is a grand, tragic allegory for the fate of Nigeria in the 1990s. The destruction of this really tight-knit family serves as a direct, powerful parallel to the broader political destabilization of an entire nation. It maps on perfectly. The fraternal violence between Ikena and Boja, that mirrors the national unrest and instability Nigeria suffered in the 90s under the military rule of General Sani Abacha. Take this one brilliantly specific detail. Early on in the book, the boys absolutely treasure this calendar featuring MKO Abiola, who was this massive symbol of hope after winning the annulled 1993 elections. Well, as Ikena descends into his madness, he violently tears this calendar to shreds. Tearing up that calendar symbolizes not just the loss of the family's hopeful future, but the squandered golden age of the Nigerian nation itself. It is just masterful, multi-layered storytelling. But look, this explainer doesn't end in total darkness. There's actually a real beacon of hope here, and it's represented by the egrets. Obioma uses animal metaphors for all the characters, and the two youngest siblings, David and Kem, are likened to egrets. Reviewers often point out that they represent this post-nationalist generation. So despite all the tragic, violent rifts caused by the older brothers, who kind of represent the older generation, these younger siblings symbolize the redemptive possibilities of the future. They are the chance to rebuild once the storm of misplaced beliefs and violence is finally past. So, that brings us to our final provocative thought. Is a prophecy fulfilled because it's objectively true, or simply because we believe it? Through this incredibly tragic fate of the Agwu brothers and this brilliant allegory of 1990s Nigeria, the fisherman challenges us to reconsider the sheer, terrifying power of our words. It really asks us to recognize the hidden linguistic forces shaping our personal lives and, on a grander scale, the history of our nations. Remember, what you choose to believe can quite literally author your reality. Thanks so much for joining me today, Focus Learners. I really hope this explainer leaves you looking at the words you speak and the words you choose to believe in a whole new light. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.